Great. Yeah, so as I said, my name's Ed, and I'm just going to introduce the advisors, and then really I'm working on the basis that you've had a chance to look at the sort of the call out, and it'll be really sort of an open floor for questions for anyone. As it's a slightly smaller group than we've had at sort of previous Q&As, it would be great if we can ask questions in person rather than sort of using the chat, but equally, if you'd rather put it in writing, do feel free to do so. So to kick us off, I'll ask Sophie to briefly introduce herself, then Natasha and Liddy.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm one of the 10 advisors on this project and also like a university student in York. So I'm really excited to be here.
Hey, I'm Natasha, also one of the advisors. My background is in philanthropy and fundraising, so I really empathise with all of you because I'm normally on the other side of the fence. So really nice to be part of this opportunity and to meet you all and hopefully give some clarity on the application process.
Hi, I'm Liddy, again, one of the advisors. I work with young people in a Christian Peace charity as my day job, and I'm also here on this panel.
Brilliant, thanks everyone. And so, as you may have seen in the sort of call out and the information around the listening fund, Sophie, Tash and Lydia are 3 of our 10 advisors who sort of collectively are drawn from all across England with a variety of sort of different experiences, all of which have been used to sort of feed into and to shape this call out focused on sort of youth leadership, focusing on grassroots organisations. But otherwise, sort of open to you. We've got about an hour. I'm really happy to answer any questions. I will probably focus on answering anything that's sort of technical or focusing around sort of potential restrictions, and then the advisors will sort of chip in on other aspects. But otherwise, the floor is open. Please feel free to just unmute yourself or put your hand up or pop something in the chat, whichever feels most comfortable.
Shall I kick things off?
Go for it, Brendan. Yes.
Everyone. Hello, everyone. It's great to have this opportunity to talk to you. I'm working for a small charity based in Kingston upon Thames in London. We're a carers charity. So we're working with adults and young people. We're working with around about 800 young carers every year. And of course, there are many more people that we could be supporting. We think more than 2,000 in this small borough in London. In February, we're all in the process of organising a young carers conference for 250 young carers to give them an opportunity to give voice to the sorts of problems and challenges that they're facing, and to then take the results of that work and feed that back into the development of our charitable work, but also to affect policy and strategy within the local authority and across the voluntary sector. So that's sort of my angle in attending this meeting today. I don't know whether we're going to qualify for funding or an opportunity to put a proposal into you, because my charity is probably turning over a little bit too much in totality, although the youth section probably would fit your criteria. So one of my questions would be, is there any way in which what we're trying to do would be of interest, and is it something that could be supported? And the other reason for getting involved is to learn more about the Blair Grave Trust, because I've not come across you before. So it's sort of research and fact finding today. So hello to everyone. I'm not sure whether I've asked a question at this stage, but that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Brendan. Really helpful. Yeah, I'm happy to speak to sort of the Bladegrove Trust if useful, but perhaps to sort of answer, because I think there definitely was a question in there somewhere. I think certainly the focus on young carers is something that we're acutely aware of, and is an area that is typically not just underfunded but undervalued, and I think something we'd be very interested in. The issue of turnover is a tricky one. We're conscious that the grants we're offering in this call out are smaller, and that sort of represents, I guess, the size of organisations we're looking to support. However, we try not to be sort of too hard and fast on kind of having ceilings on the kind of charity turnover. I think if you're significantly over the sort of £200,000 threshold, I think it's going to be sort of hard to sort of make the case. But we try to be sort of flexible and look at the work on merit rather than being utterly absolute. So
Okay.
Hopefully the fact that it's a relatively straightforward application means that you feel you can sort of chance your arm, but sort of obviously ultimately that's your decision on where you want to sort of commit time and resources. In terms of the Bladegrove Trust, very, very quickly, until quite recently, we've been a regional funder focusing on the sort of southeast, but not including London, purely because of the number of funders working in that space. So Oxfordshire, Berkshire, Wiltshire, Sussex, and sort of with a real sort of youth focus, and particularly interested in work that involves young people helping to shape or lead the services they need and want. Over the past few years, that's kind of also moved into supporting youth activism, and sort of really trying to support young people to have their voices heard in many different ways, to which your idea of a conference really speaks. We're not, we have no intention of sort of dictating how people should be heard. We recognise that it's different for different groups of young people, but that's roughly who we are. We give away grants between sort of a total of 2 and 3 million a year, and sort of work a lot in partnership with other funders. So as a very brief sort of snapshot, that's where we're working, and hopefully that's answered your question. But Tash, Liddy, Sophie, was there anything you'd want to add to that which I've said?
Yeah, I was just gonna thanks, Ed. That was really useful, because I don't think I could have given the whole overview of Bladegrove. Young carers, something that super passionate about. I've done work in young carers in the past, and like Ed said, we're already acutely aware of the issue and the fact that a lot of these young carers are hidden from view. So, you know, really appreciate you and your interest in this opportunity, and like a very worthy cause. Just on your point around the conference itself, the work that you'd sort of, if you were eligible or could consider applying, would apply for, I'd just encourage you to think about what leadership opportunities young people would have within that. So where is that youth empowerment coming in? Obviously, I completely understand the strategy of feeding that and channeling that back into your organisation to improve your accountability in your work. But in terms of the actual conference and opportunity itself, what are young people going to gain from that? What are they going to feel from that? And how are they going to be supported to really own that space and occupy leadership roles within that? Because that would really be the sweet spot, as it were, for this application and this particular line of work.
Great.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we're aiming to do, and the planning's well underway, and we've got young people involved in every aspect of the process of moving towards the conference. A lot of it's going to be performance related, and the young people are going to be well, they're in the process of designing the whole schedule of events within that, and a celebration. So it's really about how their situation in life has empowered them, and they're turning challenges and obstacles into advantages and demonstrating sort of how they've overcome that and become stronger as a result. We've got some initial support from Chessington World of Adventures, who've agreed to host it, to give us a great venue, and we're moving on from there at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Brendan. And irrespective of what happens, best of luck with that event. Laura, you've got your hand up.
Hi, everyone. My name's Laura. I'm from a relatively new youth development social enterprise called the Pendragon Project. We're based in the Peak District, and we currently work with young people from across kind of the Northwest, Yorkshire, East Midlands, West Midlands, but we don't put a specific remit on our referrals, so we can have young people from outside those areas come and join us. So we are a team adventures company, so we run kind of exciting team adventures for groups, and then we reinvest profits from our team adventures directly into youth development expeditions for young people experiencing complex transitions to adulthood. So we are with 17 to 25-year-olds. In this year, our first year of actually running our youth development work, 95% of our young people were experiencing 2 or more factors that made their life more challenging. So a real broad spectrum of young people, from care experienced young carers, unaccompanied asylum seeking young people, those at risk of criminalisation or homelessness. So I think kind of recognising the cross section of challenges and disadvantages that those young people are facing. So my questions are, I've got kind of 2 questions really. So we are coming into our second year, and our plan is to develop a youth pathway. So we will build with our young people that get referred and also apply directly to us. The first stage is a kind of an introduction expedition of 5 days, where the cohort are coming together and kind of using the power of outdoor adventure to build some of those leadership skills, confidence, resilience. And then in our second year, we'll be adding our second level, which will be a more challenging expedition with some more leadership and team development opportunities, and then a progression pathway into volunteering, a work placement, and then eventually coming back and becoming youth leaders for our new cohorts of young people, as well as hopefully offering employment and work experience opportunities through our team building part of our business. So my first question, sorry, lots of information there, is that the 2-year funding, so I noticed that it's £10,000, max £10,000 for 2 years in the criteria. Our current plan is that the kind of the end of our pathway, so actually getting young people through our entire programme as we grow the social enterprise, is 3 to 5 years. Obviously, the support of Listening Fund could greatly accelerate our work, but I just wondered kind of how that would sit, because we are probably not going to be fully at the end of our journey by the end of those 2 years in terms of what we're aiming to achieve. And secondly, when you say into leadership positions, I just wanted to clarify that that wording a little bit, because we're obviously working, a lot of the young people that we work with, some of the skills and development that they're kind of seeing at the beginning, they're going to go on a journey with us, and that might look very different to each young person. So I just kind of wondered how you were kind of defining a leadership position, really.
Great, thank you, Laura, and thank you for all the information. I'll ask Sophie, Liddy, and or Tash to answer your second question, perhaps. But if I answer that first one, that wouldn't be a problem for us. I think we'd rather be funding the right work and try and make our funding fit than you try and sort of squeeze a carefully thought out project into kind of a relatively arbitrary sort of funding deadline. It would be, I think we'd be interested in knowing what felt like sort of good outputs for a sort of 2-year window. But yes, absolutely. If the work needs sort of 3 to 5 years and we're funding the first 2 years of that, then great. I would just sort of say that the future of the listening fund sort of beyond the next 2 years is undefined at the moment. It is a sort of a funder collaboration. Strategies change, positions change. So I wouldn't want people to apply thinking that there's necessarily going to be a pot after 2024. So I guess that would just be the only question of if this funding was to support the first 2 years, is there a plan for who might be able to support, you know, years 3, 4, 5? But yeah. Liddy, Tash, Sophie, did you want to answer the second question about that leadership's definition?
Yeah, I will, but chip in if you want, Liddy. I think something that's come up for us in discussions right from the very start of this project is that leadership is very different for everyone, and doing something like this is not going to suit everyone. So we don't want to push people into doing things that aren't right. So we really want to trust that the projects we fund recognize what their young people need, and that leadership can be whatever works.
Yeah, I think so. We have a few like overarching values that kind of really drive the fund, and one of them is, I've got to remember it off the top of my head now. Young people can like, or I actually can't remember the wording, so I'm going to paraphrase it. Young people can like authentically contribute to decisions that like influence them and that affect them, and that will look like whatever they need, but actually young people's voices are really like taken into account, and it's not just like, oh, we like empower young people by doing XYZ, and yeah, like it's actually like tangible ways that young people can make their voices heard in the organization, whatever that looks like for that group of young people.
That's great, guys. Thank you very much. We are something that I'm just thinking about now as you say that we have set up an Pendragon alumni network for young people who've come and done the first level of our programme, and obviously we hope to kind of keep them engaged and progress with them through the pathway as we grow it, but also looking for more kind of creative ways in which we can take on board their feedback and get them involved in the design of the subsequent levels, and that's something that we're exploring as well, which I may now I'll think about how that fits in. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Laura. Anyone else have any questions they'd like to raise? As I say, be great if you're happy and comfortable sort of speaking to them, but equally the chat is open if you'd rather drop it in there.
Hello, yeah. I sort of actually just wanted to build on that. So hello everyone, I'm Rob. I run a very small charity in the Northeast called Hand Of, and we kind of exist to work with children and young people, usually in partnership with schools. So they're children who are at mainstream schools, but are disadvantaged in various ways, special educational needs or socioeconomic background or whatever it might be. It's one of the things we're not kind of prescriptive about. If the schools think that students need help, that's what we'll do. And our projects, there's kind of two different projects that I'm sort of thinking about in relation to this fund. And they tend to either kind of follow the children, the young people's creative ideas in creating something. So the idea is that it is child-led, and in that sense, it's a leadership position, but it's also kind of a time-limited one. I noticed in your kind of guidelines online, it mentioned about not just creating leadership skills, but actually offering positions. And those kind of projects do offer those positions, but obviously they're time limited. And then we have another kind of set of projects where we work in schools one-on-one in kind of child-led pastoral, academic, creative, sort of non-specific tutoring, if you like. We call them digression sessions, and the idea is that the children we can sort of follow their trains of thought and make things together in a way that supports their education. And we have seen from those, even without it being a designed part of the project, some of those students going on to take up roles on student councils within their schools. And so I'm sort of wondering, firstly, about those kind of leadership roles that are time limited, whether that's eligible or not. And secondly, about leadership roles that actually aren't within our organisation, but are within schools or within other organisations that we perhaps don't have so much control over, but is kind of maybe baked into what the aims of the project are, and whether therefore that's something that's eligible or, you know, maybe not.
Yeah, really helpful, and I'll definitely invite the advisors to sort of contribute to this. To answer, speak to your second question first, the reason why we sort of frame that as we did is because we're conscious there are a lot of brilliant organisations out there doing work which is focused on creating leadership skills and confidence in young people, but that ultimately, after a sort of 6, 9, 12-month program, the onus is back on the young person to go and sort of create an opportunity for themselves. And I think with our ambition to really support the young people who need the most care, that there are still sort of too bigger gaps, too bigger bridges, that whether that's in terms of confidence, whether that's in terms of sort of social capital, whether it's in terms of, sort of other responsibilities. And it's sort of, yes, the skills are essential, but it sort of still falls back on the young person. So it's not that we don't value that work. I think it's partly that we're recognize those gaps, and also really sort of wanting to work with organizations that sort of embrace some of these challenges themselves and realize the importance of working alongside young people and then bringing them into the work alongside them, rather than sort of saying, you do the change and growth and then you go and find the opportunity. In terms of the time limited, I think yeah, very sort of open to that. I think recognize that, especially for the young people going through periods of change, that the idea of planning 3, 4, 5 years ahead it looks nice on paper, but the reality is often quite different, and we'd rather people sort of share with us their knowledge and expertise and say this is what's useful and necessary and impactful, and our basis is one of trust. You guys are the experts, and if you know that intervention is the right one and what's wanted, then it's not up to us to sort of say, you know, this needs to be a forever answer. The only other qualification I would put on, and this is just a reflection on, and this speaks to something that you said as well, Laura, and a reflection on what we funded through our previous round of funding, is that as a group, when we looked at the applications, those that did well were either incredibly ambitious about the leadership opportunities that were created. For example, we funded a couple where the young person's going to be working as a co-chief executive or co-director, and they were perhaps open to young people who'd faced a whole range of different sort of challenges. Or if an organisation was working with a very specific group of young people and therefore could speak with real clarity about why a leadership opportunity that on paper might look less ambitious but was absolutely right for those young people, we were very responsive to that. But I think if you fell into the sort of slight middle ground of generally disadvantaged young people and slightly less ambitious work, that kind of disappeared in the crack. So yeah, that's sort of just a reflection that I thought might be helpful. But Sophie, Liddy, Tash, I've been speaking for ages. Anything you want to add, correct, improve?
Yeah, I was going to say kind of on that last point, like that was what we funded in the last round, but those were much bigger organizations, and we're kind of going into the grassroots round, like not really knowing who's going to apply, not really knowing what we're going to fund, and it's really exciting. But I think we do have that kind of like, we're not expecting anything, I guess. Is that a good way to put it, Ed? Like,
Sophie, Tasha, anything to add? Both of you. Great.
Thank you very much. That's, yeah, it's really useful, and it sort of helps to frame kind of not just how we talk about what we do, but also what we kind of actually build into what we do. So that's yeah, really useful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And we've got a hand up from the Birch Collective.
Thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Tim. Just a really little one really, on something quite specific. I'm aware that your previous round of funding, which was also aimed at bigger organisations, specifically stated that bringing young people onto the board was not a priority because of the work of another organisation doing that. Is that the case with this fund now, and sort of where, in terms of following on from that last conversation, where in terms of kind of ambition do you place that? So yeah, we've got a commitment to bringing 2 young people onto our board by May next year, and are really looking to sort of understand how to better do that. Yeah, so I'm just kind of interested on where that would be pitched in that scale of ambition, in your opinion. Yeah, thanks.
I'm going to wait for Ed to kick us off, and he is just moving into the living room. So there he is.
Don't worry.
Sorry about that sort of room shuffle. Yes, I mean, I think again, it's all really rooted in the young people that you're working with. And I think we're just finalising all the terms and conditions with the organisations we've sort of funded through the first call out. And I think once we sort of make those grants public, it's clear that there is a real range of I wouldn't say ambition, but sort of different types of leadership roles within that. And I think that the ones where there is a slight focus on governance or a youth board, I think it's the reason we've been so excited by that is because it's really rooted in those young people's needs and sort of a real kind of clarity of understanding about why that would be a big step forward for them. And I think the other thing that that was really appealing about those applications was the applicants spoke clearly and with all the passion you'd anticipate about the support they'd give the young people stepping into those roles. And I think we really sort of felt that was important, because I think we're all very passionate about youth leadership, but we're also conscious of the potential stress and the sort of the feeling of responsibility. And that's one of the reasons we really sort of trust in the applicants to sort of think, you know, ideally those applications developed in collaboration with young people and a real understanding of what feels right and appropriate and what would be exciting, but also if they were to step into that role, what does good support look like? And in a very non-prescriptive way. I think the people we've awarded funding to so far are doing those in a variety of different ways, but crucially, they have given clear thought to good support for that.
Really useful, thanks.
I was just going to add to that. I was going to say it's as Ed says, it's all contextual and it is around support, but being sort of prescriptive around what that opportunity means to the young people, what it's going to look like. So I've seen situations where an organisation will say, oh, we're going to have a youth board, and actually it's just bringing in 2 young people in a room of legal trustees, and the young people aren't legal trustees, and they give their 2 cents and they share their lived experience, and then the main board goes off and does what they will with it, and they get to write on paper that young people were involved. And this fund is really about authenticity and embedding young people in those structures in a way that's meaningful to them, and where you're not just taking their knowledge and experience and translating that into something that works for the organization, but actually helping those young people to excel and to provide ideas and be creative and make an impact in a way that resonates with them. So just, yeah, I think really it's about what that board looks like for your organization, for your young people, and where the impact's going to come for them, not just for the needs of the organization.
Thanks, Tash. Really useful.
Yeah, thanks, Natasha.
Any other questions from the group? We've got about 25 minutes left, so plenty of time. Lisa, please, yeah.
Hi, I'll restart my video as well, although I'm having some work done in my normal working room, so please forgive the close error behind me. I think this is a little bit more of a technical question about which of your grant opportunities is the right course of action for us. So I work for Oxfordshire Youth, which is celebrating 75 years of life-changing youth work charity. We actually had the big celebration on Tuesday, so if I seem a little flat, it was a big event is a lot. It was pretty full on, but it went very well, very exciting. And we actually have an established youth voice network that does a variety of projects. I think when my manager asked me to attend this call, I'm not sure that she had looked into the criteria, because our turnover doesn't match this at this grassroots level. And because we're in Oxfordshire, which I'm not sure is by county mentioned on your website within your regions, I think that's basically my question of, could we perhaps apply then under the regional funding avenue? As I said, we have like a lot going on in terms of youth voice. We had our 2022 Oxfordshire Youth Awards at the New Theatre in October. There were actually over 1,000 young people included in the nominations there. It was a really amazing night. We have mental health ambassadors, we work on crime reduction, but we have a project in particular, which is that we have a podcast crew, and they're all young people, 15 to 24. And we do support them, of course, with an engagement manager and a bit of logistics help, but they really run this podcast program in terms of programming the topics, getting everything together, inviting in guests, and they've done a lot of topics on activism as well. So I think it sounds like a pretty good match. It started over lockdown, pretty basic, utilizing bit more just like home computers and kind of trying our hand, but it's really taken off, and we now have kind of the open point for our next cohort for 2023, and we'd like to support them by stepping it up a level in terms of the resources there, partnering with a local place in the community where we can actually have a designated recording place for them and a bit more professional equipment, some microphones, and really kind of give this a home and bring in some expertise to help professionalize all aspects and support further what they're doing. Would that be something that we could apply for under the regional funding route, do you think?
Yeah, really good question, Lisa. I think I agree. It's not quite right for this call out, although this call out is national. With the regional work, we do have a sort of an an initial inquiry form on the website, which is literally sort of 200 to 300 words, and my colleague Tessa who sort of looks after our work in the region, it will be sort of best place to respond. And I think yes, I think it's worth sort of putting something in, and hopefully sort of that process is light touch enough that it doesn't feel too demanding. But it definitely sounds like there's some potential crossover. So
okay, fantastic. That all makes sense. It's been really great though to hear all of these super awesome projects happening. So I might just lurk and work for the rest of the call, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Lurk and work is a phrase I like very much. I'm going to steal that. So yeah. Thanks, Lisa. Any other questions? Just to speak to the question that you raised, Alison. Natasha's kindly answered. We will be sharing the recording of this by the end of the week on the website. But there is 20 minutes left if anyone wants to raise anything that hasn't been answered so far.
Ed, can I just ask something? Sorry, I've completely kind of come in late, and
No, at all.
it's really our project is a capital project, so I appreciate that's not that's the kind of the first stage of it, but the second stage is that it's going to be, we have a youth board and it's based in Birmingham, and it's about leadership and citizenship, and basically setting people up to be able to take to take part. Now at the moment the focus of the trustees is very much the capital aspect of it, while deciding on what's going to be going on there. And I really just wanted to start the conversation because it's a new area of funding for them. It's a Grade 2 star listed building, it's got a park around it, it's associated with how Birmingham developed and created as a town and with its leaders. And I suppose I just wanted to know, would it be a good idea to just engage and send that kind of short introduction, just to see? It might not be appropriate at the moment, but I just want to know what's, how we approach organisations that, fund youth leadership. As I said, I work very much in heritage and culture, and this is a slightly different area for us. They are going to be working with the University of Birmingham, and, somebody will be working with them on that programme, and it's at the visionary stage, but it was just really to have a chat about that, how to develop it in the right way.
Yeah, really, really fair question, and I think you're right that sort of the capital project doesn't sort of fit particularly squarely within this, but actually I think there is something really interesting about these big capital projects and how we often sort of wrench them out of the community and sort of give them to sort of architects and sort of boards and kind of like, and then it gets done to the community rather. So I think there is potentially something really interesting about if young people are sort of authentic and meaningful involvement in sort of shaping that work. I guess that the questions sort of which immediately come to my mind are sort of which young people would sort of that opportunity be accessible to, and how sort of can be made to sort of feel accessible to all different types of young people. And crucially, sort of, especially with capital projects and all the kind of I would want to say risk, but the level of investment required sort of to ensure that any youth board actually has sort of a meaningful voice rather than kind of I don't know, choosing the colour of the tiles or something, kind of a real sort of a sense of ownership. But we have funded. In the last round, we did fund sort of 2 arts projects, both sort of theatre-based, so that it's, we are sort of intentionally open to kind of, understanding where leadership's opportunities might be for young people. So, yes, I don't think anything you've said is sort of ringing any immediate alarm bells, but I hope those 2 points I just raised would be sort of questions in my mind when looking at that application. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks very much.
Liddy, Sophie, Tash, did you want to add anything to that which I've said?
Mostly just to second it and say that part of this fund that we've been really keen on is innovation and things that might not be funded by other funders. So if you can think it through, would be really keen to see things that aren't necessarily the typical youth project,
It's definitely not a typically youth project. Yes, it's the heritage project is the building and all of that, but what happens inside it is different. So yeah, I'll get in touch.
Thank you. Conscious we have about 10-15 minutes left, so real last chance for anyone to ask any questions they might have. As always, I think my contact details are on the application form. If something occurs to you later, drop me a line and I'll do my best to answer your questions. But certainly in terms of having time with the advisors, this is really good chance to sort of ask any questions you might have. So even if you've already asked one and something else has occurred to you, feel free to raise your hand. Oh. Okay, well, if everyone has asked everything that they want to ask, we'll sort of close this and give everyone sort of 15 minutes back of their day. As I said, the recording will be up on the Listening Fund website and on the sort of Blagrove website as well. And as I said, if you do have any questions that occur to you later, do drop me an email and do our best to answer it. The funding application window closes in 3 weeks' time on the 22nd at sort of 6 o'clock, and we will be quite firm in that, just to be fair to everyone. But if you do have any questions or problems with the application form in the build up to that, do just drop me an email and let me know. But otherwise, thank you, Sophie, Liddy and Tash, for your time, and thank you to all attendees as well. Really appreciate the good questions and conversation. And if you do decide to apply, very best of luck with your applications. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.